Hi Derek, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm so glad that you could join. So, I would love to learn more about the early lessons you had since founding Red Flags Deals until now.
Yeah, I was very lucky with, sort of my first business, Red Flag Deals, in that it's an area that I was really passionate about. It's about shopping and deals and saving money. I was a student, so it was something that was near and dear to my heart. And I think that's one of the key things as an entrepreneur. You have to be really passionate about whatever you're doing because you're going to spend a lot of hours focusing on, building hopefully a viable business, but there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. And you have to really enjoy what you're doing. The area has to be an area that you're, quite interested in. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to compete with other folks that are really interested in that particular area of focus. So I always think it's great for entrepreneurs to try to solve problems that they have or problems that, they've identified, problems that they face, problems that they're really passionate about that will make them go the extra mile.
So, you were also at RBC Ventures. So, I would love to know how that stint has helped you right now as you shape Walnut strategy.
Yeah, I think one of the things about working at RBC in this case, it's Canada's largest bank, also has an international presence. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the enterprise and how they think about the sales and the purchasing process, some of the challenges that they might have. And if I think about where, sort of startups fit into that, they were trying to, inside of ventures, try to be able to move quickly within a large infrastructure. And that's, quite challenging for most large companies. And in many cases, they benefit from partnering with startups. So one of the key things I learned is really how do you engage and work and sell products and services to the enterprise? How do you be strong and nail down things that they'll look for, like security? I think is always going to be top of mind, but it's also trying to work at their pace and be able to be agile and to be supportive of ultimately what they're trying to get done. And so for me, it was a sort of great lesson. One, I met a lot of fantastic people, learned a ton about the industry. I wouldn't have fallen into this insurance space without it, but I also learned a lot more about, how do we properly like engage and sell to the enterprise.
Could you talk more about the product itself? For example, the processes that you have in place and the strategies that you implement?
Yes, for sure. So Walnut, we're all about embedded insurance. So we're a technology enabler for embedded insurance, technology first, in that ultimately, what we want to be able to do is provide the technology and infrastructure layer to be able to connect distribution partners. Folks have an audience. It could be a telco, it could be a neobank, could be a traditional financial services firm, utility, with the right product and service that's typically an insurance or protection product. And the reason we're in this space is one, we deeply believe that in moving forward, there's just going to be more embedded insurance. People have really strong data and insights now on the customer facing side. And we know that there's needs that the customers have. So how do we fulfill those needs? So that would be things like, as an example, if you're getting a home mortgage, you need home insurance to be able to close on the mortgage. If you're, renting or leasing a property, you're going to be able to show rental and tenant insurance to be able to get the keys. And we can expedite that process because we have access to the data and the insurance products that would be able to fulfill that. We can also use things like geolocation to be able to access whether they're, at an airport to be able to trigger travel insurance. So thinking about relevant, data. And that's what we do. We're the technology that enables that. When we work with enterprises, we can deploy solutions, products in market in 90 days or less. And back to the question of traditionally, it's very hard for large enterprises to be able to move that quickly. But we've already done it before. We're already plugged into the insurance companies. That's part of the value. And it's this notion of we can go one to many. So it may be today you're interested in a mobile device protection, and tomorrow your customers want travel insurance or home insurance. We can be one pipeline to get to multiple products. So for partners of ours that have this view of increasing, typically stickiness and revenue are the two things that they're looking for. We can help them with insurance products and cover things like licensing, like sourcing, all of this. And insurance carriers are notoriously, I would say, a little bit like, behind in terms of API and connectivity. So we take care of all of that, for them as well.
So, could you talk a little bit more about the customer relationship that you have and how do you manage it, like as a team?
Yeah, I would say a little bit unique in the space. There's a lot of folks that in the insurtech space, are like, hey, I have this insurance product and then I want to find all the distribution points for this distribution product or distribution for that. I'm almost the other way. I'm coming at it as like, how do I work with a distribution channel partner who has an audience and what are the relevant products and services for them? So our first customer really is this distribution partner, the telcos, the utilities, the neobanks. They're our customer one. And then we try to match them with the right, risk-bearing entities. And the way we manage it is like, we would like to build, we're a partnership business, long-term relationships. We are not the consumer-facing brand. They are the consumer-facing brand. We're more of the powered by brand. And we typically want to work with them to identify what's the biggest pain point that we provide an initial solution for. Start with one, product, one solution with a view of being able to help them build additional layers on top over time with additional products, but we can reuse the same pipeline. So every time we do it, it gets easier and easier, but we got to start somewhere. So we got to focus in initially on, what is the highest value add, lowest friction area to start. And then we have an account management process where we continue to work with them to identify future opportunities. Sometimes they already know they want to do, three things in this 24-month time cycle. Sometimes they want to just start with one and then see where it goes. So it depends a lot but based on the partner, but we're trying to make sure that we meet the partner's needs.
So, as I understand it, this space is highly regulated. So, how do you make sure that your product is always adhering to the latest regulations that we have in place?
Yeah, I think that's part of what we bring to the table in terms of like value for our partners. A lot of the partners want to offer insurance products and solutions, but don't necessarily want to handle all the licensing and regulatory pieces. So we can actually help bring that to the table. And we are very much a partner business. So we will bring the insurers in to help us with some of the advice on the regulatory piece. Insurance distribution, for instance, is highly regulated. So depending on the type of product or service, which state, which province that we're offering this in. There are certainly nuances, and we work together with the insurers to make sure everybody is comfortable with signing off on the journey. So, as part of our process to go live, we have formal sign-offs with all the parties. So the insurers are never surprised. Like they will know this is the customer journey that is going and to be deployed to the end user, and everybody's comfortable with that. And if even regulators have questions post, we're happy to answer those questions. Back to our view is that we want to help the consumer be able to access the right products and services. And, we're trying to give them the ability to, get protection that they need just with less friction and using things like, data to pre-fill to sort of enhance the process. I think a lot of folks sometimes like the notion of insurance and make sure they want to have the protection, but it's harder than it has to be. And we're trying to make it a lot easier than, what it is today.
Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about the product roadmap, as in like the short-term goal for the next year or like a long-term goal for like next 5 years?
Yeah, it's a lot driven by our distribution partners and the types of products and services they want. We do see that there's more demand these days for products in this space around like income protection. So, as an example, just because there's more economic uncertainty, if you look at Google Trend searches and people looking for things like job loss insurance, people that are just worried about, their income stability. So, there are products out there to help with things like protecting their bills or protecting their rent. And we do have a bunch of those products already live in market. So we think that's an area of growth and opportunity for us. And then anything that, we just talked about how there are certain requirements, like opportunities where you need to have a certain type of insurance coverage in order to proceed in a customer journey. Those are ones that are sort of ripe for us. Some of the most mature industries as well, we continue to see lots of traction in things like travel insurance, I would say is one of the more mature ones because you see it at the end of all the booking journeys. So if people think about, hey, where is embedded insurance going in the next 5 years, you can see what has happened already in travel. So if you book on Expedia, you're going to get an offer for travel insurance. If you book at an airline, you're going to get an offer for travel insurance. And so that's a more mature type, but you will continue to see that for other types of insurance. That could be home insurance, auto insurance, tenant insurance. commercial insurance, cyber, all the other types of insurance will continue to migrate and continue to move towards a more embedded journey. The question is how fast, how long it will take, how much. It'll never be 100%, but it certainly will be more. And that's really our bet as a business is to continue to ride the wave of growing the embedded insurance market. And we're always looking for partners to be able to do that with.
Are you currently raising?
We're not currently raising. We raised last in April of 2024. So right now we're just trying to continue to build the business and we'll probably think about it maybe next year.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, because this podcast is focused on founders and investors, and you have also played a role in both things.
Yeah.
So I would love to get your input on what quality do you see for look for founders when investing in their business?
Yeah, yeah. It's really three things. It's, one team. And so especially if you're investing early stage, that's really what you're betting on in the end, because the ideas will change. You don't know, what is going to happen. So it's really hard even for us as Walnut. Like we've certainly shifted our focus over the years. We started more with life insurance. Now we still do that, but a bit less. So you're betting on the team to figure it out. The second thing is the market. If you're investing and you're looking for, venture scale returns or even, high returns overall, is how big can that potential market be? So, for VCs, you're probably looking at folks that want to see, multi-billion dollar markets to be able to get to billion-dollar plus outcomes. That's part of what we like about insurance. Insurance, there's plenty of multi-billion dollar companies in the space that are well capitalized, continue to grow. We think, there's probably only a handful of things that are always going to be certainties. People talk about death, taxes. We think insurance falls in there as well. There will always be like more insurance. So back to like what is the market and the potential of the market. Obviously, right now, AI is a hot market, and AI is going to be pretty pervasive overall. And third is some sort of traction, right? So you want to see that they've gotten something done. They ideally have some sort of customers or some signs of. You want to see like it might not even be full customers, but maybe they've built a prototype that people are providing positive feedback about, but something around traction. I think those are the three types of things that ultimately like I would look for, and I think a lot of other folks look for just in varying degrees. And so everybody has like different interests, which is why I think it's healthy to have an ecosystem of folks that want to invest in, maybe AI and the other folks that don't want to touch AI because it may or may not be defendable and who knows. And these are great questions that probably nobody like knows the definitive answer to, but they all have a view. So people have different preferences, but early stage, I think, team is probably number one. The market matters because it has an impact on the outcome. And then you need to see some sort of traction so you can sort of sort out like, which ones that you want to invest in versus maybe which ones are interesting, but might just be a pass because on a relative basis, it's not necessarily the right opportunity. So those are the three things I look for.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. What's the best way for people to contact you?
You can ping me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I'm slash Derek Zito or at Derek Zito on both. I'm pretty easy to reach. So if people have questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Derek, for your time today. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for meeting me.
Thank you.